Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session on Power Query Basics. Today we have Sadiq user with us who is a Microsoft certified trainer, and he will be walking us through on the basics of the Power Query and how you can get started with it. And let's get into it. Over to you. Are you there? Are you able to hear me, Yusuf?
Yes, yes, I can hear
Uh-huh.
you.
Great.
All
If you're
right,
ready, you can take control.
all right. Thank you very much. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, depending on where you are joining us from across the world. My name is Sadiq Yusuf, and I'm a business intelligence analyst and also a trainer. So, I'll be walking us through the basics of Power Query. So, I'm sharing my screen right now. Okay, but before I pull up my screen, um, can everybody type in the chat? Do we have access to type in the chat?
Yes.
Okay, okay. All right, so let me just ask us a question. So please confirm, just type in the chat. So I'll type in the chat if you have used Power Query before. Just type yes or no in the chat. Oh, okay, can see that. Yeah, okay. Switch for others. Okay, I've seen a lot of responses. Yes. Okay, all right. I think we have a lot of no in the chat. All right, that's interesting. Well done, everybody. Okay, so that's why I'm going to be taking us through the rudiments of Power Query. All right, so we start now. So when we talk about Power Query, before we even start talking about Power Query, we all know that with Power Query, there are a lot of things that we can do with Power Query, right? So, but then what is the first thing that, what is this? At the center of everything, before you even talk about Power Query, so what do you use Power Query to do? We use Power Query to clean data. So at the center of everything is data. Data is at the center of everything. So we need to understand data and what will necessitate us using Power Query to clean data. Now, when we talk about data, we have two different categories of data. We have two different categories of data, and depending on the kind of analysis you want to do. So the first category of data is what we call the historical or the past data. The historical or the past data. So when we talk about the historical data, like I said, it depends on the kind of analysis you want to do. So with historical data, it's a data that we already have sitting in a database. Data you have collected probably since the beginning of this year, last year, 2 years ago, since the inception of your business. In fact, a data that you're just getting this morning, so long it has getting to your database, it has become an historical or a past data. Now, with historical data, we do something that we call the descriptive or the diagnostic analysis with historical data. So what I mean by descriptive analysis is with historical data, you can actually know what what has happened in your business because you're talking about what is the data that's telling you what has happened in the past. So with descriptive analysis, we let you know what has actually happened in the past, your sales trend, your sales trend, your employee performance, and so on, how they have been doing in the past. Or you can also take it further and do something that we call the diagnostic analysis. That is, with also the historical data, you can know why all these things happened. Okay, our sales, we have not been doing so well in the past 3 months. So with historical data as well, we can know why did this thing happen. We can make an account to know what exactly is the cause of low sales. What exactly is the reason why we are having what low employee, our employee are not productive. So that is historical data. So then the second type of data that we have is what we call the what? The future data. And with the future data, you can do what we call the predictive analysis. Now, this when you're talking about the future data, you can actually leverage the future data what to predict what we have in the future. And again, there's no way you can have a feature. The feature data simply means a data that you've not collected yet, that is not yet in your silo, either in your database or anywhere you have your data stored. So you still leverage on your historical data, what to do a prediction into the future. So now that is, so based on our sales from January till date, then we can now say if we continue at this trend, we can predict that by June of this year, we would have what would be 50% of our, we would have make what 50% of our target, or will be what 30% in our target. And also, once you can now predict the future, you can also do what we call the prescriptive analysis. Just now, okay, once if we continue at this trend, then we're likely not going to meet our target. So what do we do to in order for us to meet our target? So we can afford you prescribe what should be done. So those are the different categories of data that we have. Now, in all organizations across the whole world, it's only few people that have access to where data is being stored. Across the whole world, most people, whenever they want to do an analysis on their data, they want to unearth insights from their data, they want to know the trend of their data, and so on like that. Most people actually reach out to the IT department. And the IT department is the only team that has access to the data, to the data source where the data is actually coming from. Now, when IT asks, so what the IT we do is we ask you what kind of data do you want? Then they help you to spool the data from the database. Then they bring it out in Excel or a CSV file, and at the end of the day, they send it over to you. Then that's when you now kind of do your analysis on that data. Now, when you now start doing analysis on data, so one thing that is very important is the most important thing is for everybody that want to analyze data, the best thing is that you should have access to where the data is coming from. That you should have direct access to the data source. So that will help you to automate a lot of your processes. So by doing so, you only need to clean your data just once. Subsequently, all you need to do is just to refresh. In fact, you can even automate the refreshing process of your data. Now, the question now is when we have our data. So we all know that the next thing to do is to what? Is to start analyzing the data. But in most cases, the situation is not so in most cases. Simply because most data come in a form that is not easily analyzable. Most data, they come in a form that is not easily analyzable. So you cannot start analyzing immediately. So you have to do some form of what? Transformation on the data. So when your data comes and you cannot directly analyze the data, then we say what? The data is not well structured. The data is not well structured. And when your data now come in a form that can immediately jump into analyzing the data, then we say the data is well structured. Now, this question that should now follow is how do we even identify a well-structured data from an unstructured data? And in the data balance, we say what? In a data that is not well-structured is also referred to as a dirty data. And a data that is well-structured is what we refer to as what? As a clean data. Now, how do you identify a clean data from what? From a dirty data. Any idea? Let's type in the chat. Any idea of how you identify whether a data is clean or not? Do I have any idea? What are the things that you need to look out for in a data before you can actually say this data is clean or this data is dirty. So let's make it interactive as much as possible. Any idea? Unit, Alexander say unit. Right. Thank you. Deborah said the format of the data. Interesting. Missing values, anomalies, nulls, decimal places. Nelson says clean data must have what complete entry structure. You need to break it down. Structure. What do we mean by structure? Fusion, cells, duplicate, and so on. Interesting. Yes, yes, we are right and we are not. We are all right. So, but then let me introduce us to those things that we actually need to look out for in the data before we can actually what say a data is clean or it is dirty. And we all know that what when the data is dirty, you cannot go ahead to analyze the data. Now, okay, so now let's go to those things that we need to look out for, and we call it what and when the data is dirty, there is a tool that we use in Power BI and on some other tools too. We have it in Excel and some other tools to clean a dirty data. So that tool is what we call Power Query. So Power Query is a transformation tool that we can use to clean a dirty data. And Power Query is referred to as an ETL tool. We call it an ETL tool. So ETL is an acronym for something. So what does the E stand for, or the T stand for, and also the L? So E in ETL stands for the extract. So Power Query, we can extract data from any data source. You can connect to Excel, you can connect to SQL, you can connect to PDF, you can even connect to online website to extract your data from it. So you connect to any database of your choice. Now, once you can extract the data from the data sources, from the different data sources, then the next thing is what the T. The T in ETL stands for transform. So with Power Query, we can transform data. So you can transform it from an unstructured format down to a structured format. So we can transform our data from an unstructured format down to a structured format. Now, then the last one is the L. So L stands for load. So after you extract your data from the data source, you transform the data. We have series of transformation processes that you can do to put your data in the structured format. Then once you are done with that, then the last thing is to now load your data. Once you are done loading the data, then you can now go ahead to start all your analysis. And like we said earlier on, now the next thing is how do we identify a clean from a dirty data? So let me just give us some tips that we need to look out for in data before we start analyzing it. So that will help us to differentiate a clean data from a dirty data. So the first thing, so let's look at the tips that we need to look out for. The first one says what? In your data, there should be no empty row or column. There should be no empty row or an empty column in your data. That's the first thing you should always look out for. That's the first tip. Then the second tip is your data should only have a single row of heading. Your data should only have a single row of heading. So in your data, there should be no multiple row of heading, just a single row. So each column should have a single row of heading. Then the third one is in your data, all dates must be in a column. You should have your date should be in a column. They should not be spread across the rows in your data. That's the third tip. Now, the next one is within your data, there should be nothing like a total or subtotal in your data. For example, you have in your data, you have different countries across your data. You have Nigeria, you have Morocco, you have Kenya, you have India, you have Egypt, and so on like that. And you have sales across the different countries. So within your data, you should not have something like Nigeria, total sales for Nigeria, for Morocco, for Egypt, and so on like that, which that should not be in the data. So remember I said what? In the data, that's the keyword. So it should not be in your data. But once when you start doing your analysis, you can now have that as a report when you are doing your analysis, in case you want to see which country is actually doing well and which one is not. And also, the last one is that what? Within your data, every unique data type must have its own column. Once a data is unique, then you must what? It must have a colon of its own. And what do we mean by a unique data type? What we mean is when your data, for example, you have Nigeria, you have Egypt, India, Cairo, Egypt, India, and so on, Togo, Ghana, and so on like that. So what is that talking about? So you can see that what all those things I've just mentioned, they are talking about what? Location or a country. So in your data, you should have a column for country, or you can call it location, depending on your choice. Or you have in your data, you have mango, you have orange, you have pineapple, you have apple, you have guava. So when you look at these things I just made mention of, they are talking about what? Different fruits. So they are all unique data type. They are unique. So therefore, you should have a column in your data that talks about what? Fruits, and so on and so on and so on like that. So these are the tips that you need to look out for in your data before what? Before you decide whether the data is clean or not. Now, these are the tips. So the next thing is for us to move into the demo of the day because of our time. So we'll quickly switch on to our demo. But before we go to the demo, I would like to throw us data. I'm going to show us the data, and I want us to tell me if the data is clean or not. Okay. All right. Think. Okay, we're going to display that now. I hope we all take note of all this. So let me display the rules again. These are the tips that you need to look out for in your data. Now, let's look at this data. Everyone, let's look at this data. Just look at it in 10 seconds or 5 seconds. What I have on my screen. I can zoom it in as well. All right. Now, this is a mini data that I have. Now, tell me, is this data clean or not? Tell me, looking at this data, is it a clean data or it is dirty? See, not clean, not compatible, clean, dirty. All right, so I just want one person for, okay, because of time. All right, dirty, not clean, clean. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Interesting. Okay, so I just want one person from the group of the data is not clean or the data is dirty. Just type in the chat, why do you think the data is? So for you to say a data is dirty, then you mean what? It has violated one of the rules, one of the tips that we just gave us there. So just type in the chat and tell me, what do you think makes this data, what makes this data to be dirty? And from those who say the data is clean, you can type in the, okay, no, let's start from one after the other. Yes, interesting. Pressure says empty row. Interesting. Because it has blank columns. Interesting. All right. But I think we're all saying the same thing. Amount is well structured. I guess you say you wanted to say it's not well structured. Okay. Okay. And so for those who said the data is clean, let's hear from you. You can type in the chat. Why do you think the data is clean. Why do you think the data is clean? Okay, since say no rule is violated. All right. Okay, because of time. Now, if you remember, we say what? There are some things that you need to look out for in your data. So there are some tips I gave us. So I say if your data is violating any of these tips, then it means what? The data is dirty. It means the data is dirty. Now look at all these tips now. No empty row or column, one row of heading, date must be in a column, no total or subtotal, and every unique data must have its own column. So, and when you look at this tip as against the data that we have, some people said that what most people actually say what the data has an empty column. So if you look at this very well, there is nothing like an empty column. But what we have are just empty cells. Empty cells. So empty cells is allowed. Yeah, it doesn't mean the data is there. It simply means that what your data is not complete. You don't have what a complete data, but then it doesn't mean that what your data is dirty. So it still does not what violate any of the tip I just gave us. So therefore, this data is clean. Yes. So therefore, the data is clean. So that is how you what you identify a clean from a dirty data. Now, so let's jump into the business of the day. Let's look at, okay, I'm going to show us another data now. Another data. Okay. Okay. So on my screen now. So looking at this data, is this data clean or it is dirty? That's another question for us. This data now, is it clean or it based on what you can just see? So just focus on my screen. What you can see from my screen, is it clean or it is dirty? Hmm. Okay. Dirty, clean, dirty. All right, so for those of you that are saying the data is dirty, just type one rule that you think the data is violating. One rule that you think the data is violating. Let me see. Okay, empty column. No, row one, say, okay, empty row. Data should be in the column. Do you not understand? Single. Okay, interesting, interesting. So when we look at this data very well, so we see that what the data is dirty, but what rule is this data violating? So number one is what? The rule that says what? One row of heading. If you look at our row says is what? One row of heading. So when you look at the data very well, we have multiple row of heading. Multiple row of heading. That's one. The second rule is people that are saying empty row, there are no empty rows. If you look at this very well, this column, see here, it is not completely empty. So long it is not completely empty from the top to the bottom, then it is not an empty row or an empty column. All we just have here are just what? The empty cells. So this simply means on the 14th of March, we didn't make any sales for consumer, no consumer products or and so on like that was sales. So it doesn't mean that the data is empty. So we still have something here and it move down and so on. So multiple row of heading is valid. And another thing you need to consider when you are trying to clean your data is that what you need to study, get yourself, familiarize yourself with the data very well. So the another rule is when you look at the top first, so we have ship mode, then we have first class, and we have same day, we have second class, and when I move to the right a bit, we have standard. Okay, these are the four things that we have there. So under each ship mode, you notice something. This is replicated across each ship mode. That is for first class, we have consumer, we have corporate, and we have home office. The same thing for same day, we have consumer, we have corporate, and we have what? Home office. For second class as well, the same thing, and so on. So this simply means what? They are unique data type. First thing is what? The ship mode that we have here. That is, first class is a ship mode. Same day is a ship mode. That is the way of delivering the product down to the how we convey the product down to the consumer. So we have a first class delivery, the same day delivery, second class, or the standard class. And also we have the segment, the customer segment. So under each category, we have what? The consumer. What kind of segment do you belong to? We have the consumer, the corporate customer, and also the home office customer across each segment. So this means what? These two things, they are unique data type. They are what? Unique data type. That the ship mode is a unique data type on its own, and also segment is a unique data type on its own. Now, what does our tip says about what? About unique data type? It says what? Every unique data type must have its own column. Every unique data type must have its own column. Now, so it simply means what? This data is violating what? Two rules. Then we now need to go and clean the data. We need to go and clean the data. So to clean a data, the tool that we use in cleaning the dirty data is what we call Power Query. So I'm going to bring up my Power BI now. Okay. Okay. All right. So this is the home face of my home page of my Power BI. Now this is the home page of my Power BI. So and now first thing is, don't forget we say what Parkway is an ETL2. First thing is you need to extract, that is connect to the data source. And how do you connect to the data source? It is by going to the get data on your Power BI interface. On your Power BI interface, there's a command that is called what? Get data. Get data. Yeah. So with get data, you can connect to several data sources. Now, if I click on it here, you see the different data sources that I have. You can connect to Excel, you can connect to Power BI data sets, data flow, SQL Server. If I want to see more of this, I just click on more. Let me see all the different data sources that I can connect to. Okay, now connect to Excel, CSV file, JSON, PDF, a folder, and different data sources depending on where your data is currently being kept. Now, so our data, our own data is in Excel. So let me go and connect to Excel. So click on Excel. Okay, click on Excel. Then when I come to the bottom here, I will see connect. Connect. Okay, so let me get to where I have my data. So currently I'm connecting to my data. Now on the Excel workbook, I have about 4 different data, different sheets there. So first one is called 31. If you click on it, you will see the kind of data that you have there. 32, 3, and 4. So I can connect to them one after the other, or I can connect to all of them at once. So let's connect to all of them at once. But I'm not sure if time will permit us to clean everything at once. But to connect to everything at once, just tick the box. I'm going to tick these boxes. This box is what I'm going to tick to bring in everything. So tick the boxes. Now I'm at the process of extracting the data from its data source. Now the next step of Power Query, don't forget, say Power Query is an ETL2. So I've done the E. What's the next step after E? What does the T stand for? Let's type in the chat. or T, if you remember very well, T stand for what? Transform. Thank you very well. Yes, you transform the data. So once you tick this box at the bottom of my screen, three options there. You can either load the data directly or you transform the data. So where we are going now is transform. So I'm going to click on transform data. Okay. So once I click on transform data, it brings me to the Power Query interface. So it's opening on my other screen. So let me just bring it up here. Brings me up to my Power Query interface. Now I have on the right hand side, I have all the tables I just connected to, table 1, 2, 3, and 4. And at the middle, I have the data itself. And to the right hand side, one thing is very, very important. On the right hand side, you have something that is called the applied steps. Applied steps. So on the applied steps is where any transformation. Please confirm that you can see my screen, everyone. Please confirm that you can see my screen. This okay, all right, thank you. So to the left hand side, you see all the table that we've connected to, and to the right hand side, you see the applied steps. So any transformation process you do in Power Query, it is going to be what recorded under the applied steps. So here now it is recording this for me that I've connected, I've done I've undergo 4 processes, 4 steps. I connected to the data, navigate, promoted data, and change type. So because of time, so what happened is source was when I connected to the data, and navigate was that was on the page. That was where I click on transform, and it brought me to this page. But you see, the promoted headers and the change type was done by Power BI. It was done by Power Query itself. So it's just what looks at my data and assume that, okay, I need to what I need to promote the headers. So one thing that you need to notice when you are cleaning your data, it is best that you take charge of your cleaning process. What I'm going to do here is these 2 suggestions that were. Yes, I did not. Yes, exactly. I didn't change anything. Yes, it was suggested. It was done automatically by Power Query itself. It just assumes that what I need to promote headers and I need to change the data type. So I'm not the one that did it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to what undo that step. And it's also worth to note that what in Power Query, what you are doing is just click and click and click to perform all your transformation steps. So, but then at the back end, Power Query will be writing the code for you. It's going to be writing the code for you. And the formula language of Power Query is what we call the M language. We call it the M language, stands for mashup language. So I'm going to show us, by the time we are done cleaning, I'm going to show us all the code that Power Query has written for us at the back end. Now, also in Power Query, unlike Excel, where you can do, when you make a mistake, you can do Ctrl Z to undo, right? But in Power Query, you cannot do Ctrl Z. But what you can do is, once your steps has been recorded, or you do need to do is come to the apply steps here, and once you can see this X box, you can cancel the step. So that's what I'm going to do for these 2 steps, change type and promote headers. I'm going to cancel the 2 steps. Now let me quickly do that. For change type, click on this. Then promoted headers, I also what cancel. They said now I have my data. This is the same way it was in my Excel. Now don't forget, we've already identified the problem with this data, and we say what the data has what multiple row of heading. Then again, unique data has to be in a column, so they are not in their own column. Now let me ask us, from our knowledge of Excel, what first thing we want to do is whatever we have here now, the ship mode, that is the first class, same day, second class, and also the segment, the customer segment, that's the consumer, corporate office, and home office. They are arranged horizontally across the columns. So we want them to be in a single column. That is, we want a column for cost ship mode and another column for the customer segment. So let me ask us, for those of us who know Excel very well or who are used to Excel, if you have anything, okay, let me even bring up our raw data from Excel so that we'll be seeing it in Excel perspective. Okay. So this data now, we have them across like this, but we want to what? Find a way to rearrange them and put them in a vertical column instead of being in horizontal column. What do you do? How do we get this done in Excel? Thank you, Samuel. You say what? VLOOKUP is not pivots. Okay. Now, yes, what we want to do is to what? Is to transpose. What we want to do is to transpose from. So whenever you have anything arranged horizontally, and you want to bring it to the vertical, you want to change it to vertical orientation, you transpose. There is same thing if you have anything done vertically, and you want to change to horizontal. This thing. So what you see do is to what? Is to transpose. So we go back to our what? So that's the same thing we are going to do on Power Query. So we go and transpose our data. Then we see what will happen with our data. All right, sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Please confirm that you can hear me now.
Yes,
All
we can
right,
hear you.
yes. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we come back to our Power Query. Now, what we transpose. Now, in Power Query, we have different. So every transformation step that you want to take, they are already on the ribbon. So we have different tabs. We have the Home tab, the Transform tab, the Add Column tab, View, Tool, and Help. So most of your transformation process are going to be done under the Transform tab. Under the Transform tab. Now, well, under the Transform tab, there is a command that's called what? Transpose. And in Power Query, unlike Excel, where you can work with a cell in Excel, in Power Query, you either work with the table as a whole or you work with a particular column in the table, but you cannot work with what? With a cell. Now, here I'm going to click on transpose. Then we see what will happen to my data. Transpose. Once I click on transpose, then it change everything. So from what? Horizontal down to vertical. Now I have my ship mode in the vertical orientation, then the segment as well in the vertical. Then mistakenly or unintentionally, our date that is already on the what? On the vertical, it has been what? Transposed to the horizontal. That's the work of transpose. Everything on horizontal axis brings to vertical, and everything on vertical axis it brings to horizontal axis. Now, but don't worry, we are coming there. So also, if you check to the right hand side under my apply steps, you can see that what? Transpose has been recorded for me. So the next thing I'm going to do right now is, I know ship mode is meant to be the name of my column. Consumer segment as well is also meant to be the what? The name of this column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to what? Push this first row and make it what? Push it up here so as to make it the row header, to make the what? Our column header. So I would have removed this row, but then if I remove this, I'm going to be removing part of my data. All this data will be lost. So the only thing that we can do here is to what? Is to push the first row and make it our header. So to do that, there's also a command that can help us to do that. And that command is called what? The command is called use first row as header. So if I click on this now, then you see what will happen. The ship mode has moved up. Segment has moved up as well. Order date that was on the first row before is now on the top. Now we have our data. And also, if you go to your apply steps, we have promoted header. And by default, anytime you do promoted header in Power Query, it always comes with change type. It helps you to what? Try to detect the kind of data that you have in each column and what? Give you the data type. Now, we are almost there. So our first column, now we are ship mode is now what? It has a column, segment has a column on its own. But if you check your ship mode, we have a lot of null there. Can somebody tell us why do you think we have a null under first class? We have null, same day null, and so on like that. Why do you think we have null there? Let me take us back to our data. Why do we have null there? Any reason, any idea why we have null there? Exactly, because if you look at our data, when we have first class here, the next thing after it are just 2 empty cells. The same thing for the what? The same day delivery, 2 empty cells. So what this is actually saying is that what? This first class is for this whole segment. That is, we are meant to have first class here, here, and here. Same thing here, same day, and so on like that. So in Power Query, so what we need to do is to replicate this first class downward, same day downward, same day downward, and also what? Second class and standard class. So unlike our Excel where you go and copy and paste on the empty cells, in Power Query you cannot copy and paste. Don't forget, I told us that what? You cannot work with a cell in Power Query. It's either you work with a column or you work with the entire table. Now, so on ship mode, now we are going to click the column that we want to work with, which is the ship mode column. Then what we want to is what is to replicate this this text downward. Then the command that will help us to replicate this downward in Power Query is what we call the fill. You fill. And if you look up here, I have a command here that's called fill. But under fill, we have, if I click on the drop down, we have 2 options there. It's either you fill up or you fill down, depending on how you want to replicate your data. If you want to replicate this same day upward, you're going to do fill up. But if you want to replicate downward, then you what? Fill down. So in this case, what are we going to use? So we are going to use what? Fill down. So when I click on it, by default, it helps into what? To fill down all the what? All the different ship mode that we have. So now we now have what? First class for consumer, first class for corporate customer, and also first class for home office customers. Then same thing for same day and so on. Now, if you look at this data very well, we are getting somewhere. Our first column and second column, which is the ship mode and segment, they are what? They are fine. Now, but when you look at the top from third column down to the end of our data, you find out that in trying to solve a problem, we have what? Create another problem. And what is that problem? The problem is that what? Our date, which is our order date that was initially in a what? In a row, in a column, that's one column, has now been suspended to a row. What do we do again in this case? So we need now to bring this, our date that's now in a row, we want to bring it into a column. What do we do? Can we guess what we need to do here? Can we just guess what you think we need to do here? Just type in the chat, If you can guess what we need to do here. So we have the date now in a row. So we now want to bring it back into a column. How do we achieve that? Thank you. We transpose. Thank you, Clement. We transpose. Yes. Now, but if you look at this row, Deborah, concatenate means you are trying to join things together. So you use concatenate to combine things. Here we are not combining. We want to transpose. Yes. What we want to do is to transpose. But in this case, if you look at this data very, what do you think will happen if we transpose this data, this table again? You find out that it is likely for us to what, to go back to where we are coming from. That is our ship mode and segment that are already okay. We now what? Go back to row again. So we are moving around a circle, just like a circle. But in this case, what we actually want to do is to transpose, but we only want to transpose a certain part of the table, not the table as a whole. We only want to transpose a certain part of the table. So our ship mode and segment, we are okay with it. We don't want to transpose these two columns. But from column 3 down to the end of the table, those are the only columns we want to transpose. So we are transposing all other columns except ship mode and segment. So anytime you find yourself in a situation whereby you want to transpose a certain part of a table and not the whole table, then in that case, what you want to do is unpivot. What you want to do is unpivot. So unpivot also helps to transpose, but then it helps to transpose a certain part of the table and not the whole table. So in this case, what do we want to unpivot? We want to unpivot this from column 3 down to the end. So what I'm going to do here is I need to just mark or highlight the column that I don't want to do anything on. The ship mode and segment, they need to remain as they are. So click on ship mode, hold my control key, then click on segment to highlight these two columns. Then I will tell my Power Query to to transpose the remaining part of the table. That is, I want to unpivot the column. You can see there's a command for unpivot column. Now, if I click on the drop down, we have 3 different options for unpivot column. Do we want to unpivot the current column, or we want to unpivot the other columns, or we only want to unpivot only selected column? Can somebody tell us what we want to do here? Is it we want to unpivot columns, unpivot other columns, or we want to unpivot the only selected columns? Any idea? Any idea what we want to do? Thank you, Matthew. So we want to unpivot the remaining columns. So we want to unpivot other columns. So I'm going to say what? Click on unpivot other column. I want to unpivot other column. Now you can now see what? My date is now what? In a column. My date now has a column of its own. And also if I go to my apply steps, you can see I fill down and also what? Unpivot other columns. Okay, now we're almost done. We're almost done. So the next thing now is what? So we need to change the name of this column 3 and change it to the right name. So we have ship mode segment. So you need to name your column very well for easy identification. So this is the date. This is the attribute. So we change attribute to this. So all you need to do is what? Double click on attribute, then change it to order date. It was formerly called order date. Order date. Then this value we can call it amount. So I'm going to double click on it, then change it to amounts. Then another thing you need to note when you're cleaning your data is all data must have the correct data type. The correct data type. So now this column 1 is ship mode. So we have what? They are all text, and that's why we have ABC here. The fastest way to change your data type is when you click on this ABC, you see the different data type that we have. We have decimal number, fixed decimal number, whole number, percentage, date and time, and so on like that. So this ABC signify what? Is in text. The same thing for segment is in text. But our order date is not in text. It is in text currently. So it is not in a date. So we need to change this data type to a date. It's either you choose data time or you choose ordinary date. It should not be in text. So the correct data type for date is date, not text. Now, if I change this date now, okay, let me quickly change this to date. Okay, I want to pick date. And I'll click on this ABC at the top here, then change it to date. You can see I now have some errors in my data. I have some errors in my data. I have errors in my data. What do you think accounts for this error? Why is date not dating? So some of the date are fine, while some are showing us error. That is because if I come back to where I was coming from before, this change type, right? I'll come to, yes, someone says various date format. Maybe not. Date not well written. Now, if you come here easily, now this is I've gone back to where we are coming from. I've gone a step ahead before where. So this is change type. This was when we were changing the data type. So I came back to rename column. So here now, so it means what we have not changed the data. So if you check some of these column, some of these dates, they have some addendum. For example, now this date, particular one, we have 7/5/2013. Then we have underscore 16. This is not a correct date type. Yes, underscore this. So some of them ask underscore. You can see, in fact, we have underscore 193/208. So for us to have the correct date format, so we need to remove what? All these underscore 16, underscore 18, and so on like that. So we only want to keep everything before the underscore. So anything from the underscore to the end, we do not want them, right? So that means what? Our so let me come and clean. All I need to do is what? This chain type, I'll cancel it. Cancel it. Then before I'll come back to the other date, then I need to remove all these underscore 16, underscore 18, 40, and so on, or everything that has underscore. They needs to be removed. So it's still what? Part of it. So to do that, what we need to do is what? We either what? We extract this data or we can split this data. So what do I mean by splitting? Okay, so I will attend to your questions later. So when you click on the order date, right? So we can extract, that's the fastest way. And we can also split, but let me do splitting. Can you see split column? We need to split this column. And split column, we have different ways of splitting column depending on what you have in that column. You can split by delimiter, by the number of character, by position, lowercase to uppercase, and from digit to non-digit or non-digit to digit. But what we want to use here is by delimiter. And when we say delimiter simply means anyway, you have your special character. Yes, that special character we have where we have full stop, comma, even space, question mark, they are all delimiter. So our delimiter here, who can tell me what's our delimiter here? So what we want to do is what? Split this data by delimiter. That means from the delimiter to the end, just split it. So whenever you have that, your demarcation point should be what? Your delimiter. Yes, thank you very much. So our delimiter here is the underscore. So I'll click on no. If you use this backstroke, that means what? You are splitting the dates. If you use backstroke as the delimiter, then it means what? You are going to be splitting the dates. So we have 1/15/2013 is going to split that. But that is not what we want to do. What we want to do is what? Anyway, we have underscore split by underscore. So underscore is what we do not need in this data. So I'm going to split column, then choose by delimiter. By delimiter. Yes, by default, it is going to look into my data and what pick the data, the delimiter it has there. So by it is seeing underscore first. It is seeing and the backslash that you somebody made mention, Alexander made mention earlier on. So it is seeing that, but that is not the delimiter that we want to use. So yeah, so I'm going to change this now. So by again, we have different delimiter. We have from when we click on this, we have colon, comma as a delimiter, equal sign is also a delimiter, semicolon, space, or a tab, they are all delimiter. But we have some delimiters that are not listed here. So that's where you can pick what? Custom. So it is a custom delimiter, and you can now specify what your delimiter is or is going to be. So here, I don't want to use the backslash. So I'm going to delete this. Rather, all I want is the what? The underscore. That should be my delimiter. That should be my delimiter. So I'm going to say what? Each occurrence, I'm using what? Each occurrence of the delimiter. So anywhere you see delimiter, that's what you should use to break that column into two. Then I'm going to say what? Okay. Click on OK. Click on OK. Now, if you go to my apply steps, you can see split column by delimiter. It has recorded that for me as well. Now I have my order date 1 and order date 2. So I have null and I have numbers there. If I filter, you can see I have numbers 1, 2, 3. Those are the underscore 100, underscore 28, and so on. And where we have null, there are those spaces that doesn't have delimiter. So that's why it is returning none. So first thing is this column, I do not need it. The order date 2. So I'm going to delete it. Go to my home tab and you see remove column. Remove column. So I've removed that. Then other dates one, I can now change it to other dates. So other dates. You can see by default, it has even identified that what this is a date. I don't even need to change it myself again because everything is now in a what in a date format. So by default, Power Query has identified that this is a date and what starts what pick it as a date. Sorry. Then the last one is the amount. So my amount is in ABC and 123. Anytime your data type is in ABC or 123, it simply means what? The data type is in, it can accept any value. It can accept alphabet or number. So you can change this data type now to either decimal number or a fixed number, a fixed decimal number, any one of your choice. Change this now. So my data type is now correct. Now, can we look at this data and tell me, is this data clean or it is dirty? Please confirm, is the data is clean or it is dirty? Is there any other transformation that we need to do on this data? Any other transformation that we need to do? Yes, in order to also check as well, I can just go to the column and see what we have. These are the unique ship mode that we have. If you go to segments, these are the segments that we've identified. The order date, everything is in dates. And if you check the amounts, yes, we have everything in number. So it simply means what? Our data is now clean. So we have what? Clean this data. The only thing left, so we have finished the transformation phase of Power Query. Then the next thing is to what? Is now to initiate the L phase of it, which is the last phase, which is called what? To load the data. But before we load the data, I want to show us something. I told us earlier on that what? Power Query has its own what formula language, and the formula language is called the M language. So let's just go ahead and look at all the code that Power Query has written for us by what we just what clicking and clicking and clicking on different commands. So to view that, we go to the View tab on your tab where we have Home, Transport, Transform, Add Column, and View. I'll click on the View tab. Then we see Advanced Editor. Advanced Editor. Click on Advanced Editor, then you see all the code that Power Query has written for us by just what clicking and clicking and clicking. So this is the M language of Power Query. So most time you don't really need to memorize, you don't need to know this except you want to go really, really in depth. So for now, this is what the code. Now, so we can go use that method to clean. I'm going to make this exercise file available. Can use that method to clean the 2, 3, 4, and so on like that. And if you encounter any challenge, you can always reach out um, to us. Thank you. Okay, let's quickly initiate the last phase, which is the load phase. So I'll go to the Home tab. Then you see the first command that we have there is called what? Close and apply. Close and apply. So that's what is going to help us to what? To load the data now into Power BI. So now that the data is clean, then we are now sure that we can go ahead to start analyzing our data. And mind you, it is only the first data that is clean. The remaining 3 data we need to what? To clean. Just because of time, we could not go through all of them. But you can go through them and let me know if you get stuck at any point. Thank you very much, everybody. My data is loading already. So thank you very much, everybody. So now I can take your question. We spent quite enough time. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusuf, for the session. I think it was really interesting and to go through all those things and all. I hope everyone here was able to grasp the concept for the Power Query and it was helpful for you. And if there is any questions, we can quickly ask it since we almost spent a lot of time on it. So if you have any questions, let's drop it fast in the chat box.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Yes, see you. Yes, yes. Okay, Brian. Yes, yes. With Power Query, you can connect to any. So we have some data sources that we call the custom data source. So that's data source that Power Query can connect to easily. But there are some also that you need to what? You need to connect to. You cannot connect. So you can use API, just like you said here. You can use API to. You can also build data gateway to connect to them. Then you scrape your data. Then you can now what? Do the cleaning or do the cleaning, and you can now analyze your data. Yes, Power Query can allow you to connect to any data source of your choice. Yes, you can use API as well to connect. Thank you very much.
I think there is no more questions related to the today's session, and I hope you guys have filled the form for the attendance and for the to receive the certificate. And the recording will be shortly available on our YouTube channel, and I have shared their link in the chat box as well. So, in order to receive your certificate, you need to fill the attendance form. That is the reason, and it's basically a feedback form. There is nothing complication. Then just fill it out, and we'll use that data to send you a certificate. Okay. And I think there is no more questions related to today's event, and we can wind up the today's session again. Thank you to Yusuf for the wonderful session, and thank you all for joining with us today. Have a great rest of the day.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, everybody, for joining the session. We hope to connect with you on social media, and we'll meet there. Thank you. Bye for now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Make sure you follow him on LinkedIn. The link is available in the screen. So yeah, if you don't mind, you can share the link in chat box,
Okay. Um.
or
All right.
or I can get it. I have shared the link to your profile, and I hope you guys are okay with giving it a follow and get connected. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir.